Well, hello, my name is Luis Navarro. I work for seachem for the past 5 years and I travel the world aquascaping for seachem. I like simple, I like nature, and I stick to that. At the end of the day, aquascaping is something that is very personal, because if you're not competing, if you're doing this, you are the one who needs to be pleased with the work.
Hello everyone, luckily it's that time again. We are having a workshop here at Green Aqua, and our guest today is coming from the USA. Please, all of you, welcome Luis Navarro from seachem. Hi my friend.
Hello, Tony.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Green Aqua. Thank you, seachem, for a dream come true.
We've had a ton of workshops with people from the competition world. Luis is much more for the people who love planted aquariums without the stress of competition.
I guess so, you can say that.
And yeah, just a different approach of building something that's not disposed or taken apart after 6 months or 1 year,
Yeah.
but to get an approach on how to build a tank that you can keep on running for years to come.
When it comes to aquascaping, I like to present things in a much simpler way rather than create a very complex scenario that it will almost be unapproachable for many. All right, so let's get ready to escape this 120 centimeter aquarium. Let's learn, let's have fun, let's get it done. The technique we're using today is a ratio of 2:1 or 3:2, which this means that you have a structure that is longer and wider than the opposite. And the whole idea to do this is to break the illusion of symmetry. We're going to start by the substrates, and what we're using today is going to be an aqua soil. In this particular case, I'm going to jump start the substrate by using a small amount of matrix. Matrix, as you know it, is a filtration media, but it also can be helped to build a higher slope and also to maintain good bacterial activity. All right, so this is dry, so it's gonna get absorbed by the media. I want this to reach as deep as possible. Not going to worry too much about the foreground because we can always brush it back. We're going to have a sand front and that can be just fixed as we go.
Are you not using base layer fertilizing substrate, and if not, why?
No, because Aquasolum is rich in nutrition. So this is premium brand from seachem and Aqua Vitro, and that's the reason why we don't. So it's designed to work on its own, and the whole reason why is because it's humid base. And unlike other aqua soils, it doesn't render as much organics, and it's much easy to control it. Now I have enough to start positioning the driftwood, and when I'm done with the structure, I can always add more to create the necessary depth that I will need to plant. In this particular case, we're using very big pieces of driftwood, and I want to get that contrast of not so much what is going to grow here. There will be pieces that can be exposed to the water, like the tank behind you. And that's the illusion that I want to give. Aquascaping, it's the way I like to put it out, divided on 3 different things: equipment, hardscape, and planting. Since we already have equipment ready to go, I will select the materials for the presentation, which I really like to work with driftwood. I'm very familiar with it. I know how to use it. I like to use it in my seminars because it is friendly to work with. The water chemistry is not affected nearly as much as when you work with basic rocks. I will accent with some rocks. It will more than be a 3:2 or 2:1 ratio layout, very traditional nature aquarium style.
How would huge amounts of ironwood not color the water?
To me, this is probably the friendliest for beginners. The tannins are just a natural effect. It's not so much of a concern to me if you start doing water changes, which we will. The first stage of the tank, I like to use very aggressive chemical media like matrix carbon that will actually deplete the water from the excess nutrients as well as tannins. As the time goes and the population of bacteria start growing in the media in my aquarium, then I switch to Purigen. We all know that in order for you to create something that is going to stay in place, you have to sometimes glue things together. One of the biggest issues you have when you use regular cyanocrylate is that you make that white spot. A catalyzer bonds the cyanocrylate very quickly, and it actually gives it a clear color. And it doesn't smell, it's kind of like a scent perfume. In America, is available at craft shops.
You good? Holding rocks?
That's what I do for a living. We're just using a traditional nature aquarium approach. It's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. We're going to have a negative space. It's going to be like the basic nature aquarium style is you divide into thirds, 1/3, 2/3, and the same goes from tip to top. We're going to have two structures. One is going to be much more prominent and heavy than the opposite, with a negative space that is going to be off the center. It was 1998 that I was on my way to get dog food to one of these big pet markets in Houston, Texas, where I live now. And they had a book sale. They had the Nature Aquarium book by Takashi Mano. When I opened that book, my life changed. Seeing a planted aquarium that was not what I considered or understood was the proper way of keeping a planted aquarium, it just completely rocked my world and changed my mind of seeing things. Understanding the simplicity of simple techniques that they were focused on nature itself gave me a whole new opportunity of understanding the concept of nature aquarium. So for those who actually saw Lucas' workshop, he's really good at explaining how to look at rocks, and the same goes for driftwood. Just like us, they have a good side and a bad side. In this case, I have the wider side towards the glass. I actually even like doing the planting in the same manner. Look at the way Mr. Cardoso did things here. He used the broader leaves on the opposite end and he faded into the narrow end. So you create more depth by doing so.
We're gonna need to make sure to have maintenance space as well.
Oh, that's your problem, not mine.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to make sure. Well, not mine either. So.
I'm glad I'm not here.
Yeah, leave your number for them in the morning.
Crazy to me because I've been doing these for, well, it's over 30 years nowadays. Very happy to see it blooming and expanding because I never, for one day in my life, I expected that I will be sitting here in Hungary answering questions about aquatic plants when it was just a hobby for me. The whole concept of using filtration is to ideally move the entire volume of the aquarium 5 times per hour. I don't go by that. I do 10 to 20 to 15 if possible, like, depending on how much of access to filters I have, but I will load them up with matrix and I'll just let it run with a lot of filtration.
Okay, so about the same level, or you want the dip in the middle?
Yeah, that's why I open it and then I'll just fix it as I go. One of my best advices I can give you when it comes to understanding plants is please get Crystal Castleman book. It's probably your best friend. One of the basic necessities of plants that is by far the most important is carbon, the backbone of life, and the reason why we add CO2 to the water. Consistency in temperature. Plants thrive and do better on cooler water, believe it or not. 21 to 22 Celsius is a sweet spot for plants. And the photo period, very important. I start with 6 and I never go over 8.
What's your history? Is it a hobby became your profession, or there was a tank in your house?
Have lived more than half my life in America, and therefore I represent the United States of America, but I was born in Mexico. I grew up in a place where we have the rainforest in the back and a reef in front of me, so I was obsessed by the beauty of it, by the simplicity of, you know, the greenery of plants just growing in nature. The rocks, the cliffs, and the Pacific, it was inspiring. When I was in elementary school or primary school, there was a major earthquake in 1985. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 35,000 people lost their lives, and my hometown is on the Pacific side of Mexico, and it was about 200 clicks away from the epicenter, so it was very violent. So my father, along with other people, rented a small aircraft, and they just moved as close to Mexico City as possible, so they drove in looking for relatives. That's how it started, believe it or not. And one of those many trips that my dad did until he found his mom, he came back with a 10-gallon tank. And I don't think he knew the kind of worms he was opening, but the first time I went to a creek and I put on a mask and I went under, I saw this. I saw all these plants growing underwater, and my just whole life changed. And it was just that picture of seeing Vallisnerias and Cetarophilliums growing with a shoal of probably tens of thousands of C4 Helferi on the wild form. Just changed my life. And from that point on, any vessel, any plastic jar, anything will have whatever I could collect in the forest, the ocean. I'll just keep snails, tadpoles, you name it. And that was the beginning of this.
Thank you.
This is slightly humid. Ideally, when it comes to sand, I like to use it a little bit more dry, which is fine. I mean, it's gonna get wet anyway, but it actually allows you to layer and cover that line that you can actually see from the side, and it will hold the aquasoil in a way. In the year 2001, Mr. Amano Takashi was invited and agreed to come to Chattanooga, Tennessee to do a presentation. Sadly, that year, as you can remember, we were attacked in New York. Traveling changed as we know it. Took a plane from Houston, flew to Nashville, Tennessee, had to rent a car, and a friend of mine and I drove all the way down to Chattanooga to see Mr. Amano work live. This particular technique, well, it was at the time one of my first experience with Mr. Amano, to see him work in person. Again, it was in 2001. For him, it was beyond important to have a well-defined foreground. He will have this one rule, he will hold his position, he will flick the sand in a way that he made a perfect straight line, and he made sure that it was nice and even. There's a couple funny incidents that happened at the time. Somebody in the audience that, because he will actually tell you, he wanted to teach you that he will actually bring you up to the tank and do it. And the guy did it wrong and he got a fresh one in the butt. So he showed up with a small suitcase that had 3 tools, a set of rocks, some cotton thread, and some fishing line. He got a piece of wood out of one of the exhibits at the aquarium, and we saw him put together something so beautiful, so efficiently, just by organizing things ahead of time.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
I just sprinkle a little bit of aqua gravel on the foreground. It's imperfect, it's fine. So we're going to start with the planting. We're done with the basic hardscape, ratio 2:1, negative spaces here. Again, we're going to start with the ground covers.
Most important question for planting. Completely dry, wet, or underwater?
Completely dry. Adding water, as friendly as it may be for the plants, it makes things a little dirty to me. As I finish planting one section, then I moisturize my plants with water, because we do have to worry about that.
Slightly damp on the soil, but no water level,
Whatever
obviously.
makes you feel good, man.
Okay, thank you very much. I keep the foreground dry for you.
Contemporary aquascaping follows rules that they don't apply to the way I learn things, and to me they're fascinating. For instance, just to give you an example, And I just learned this from Mr. Puchades in Mexico because I went to his seminar 3 weeks ago. He actually used tall plants near the foreground and he faded in towards the back with smaller plants. And by doing that, he created the depth. Seeing Mr. Romano work for the first time, it just simplified things as it just gave us the tools to work in a way that was more efficient and organized. The fact that he planted the aquarium dry was crazy to us. I mean, it was like, wow, look, he's got the tank empty. It's not that we were actually planting with the aquarium full. The aquariums were full of water. We didn't even use tweezers at the time. We were using hands. It was a tool of choice. Aquascaping tools came later in life. These are Aqua Vitro stainless steel tools. We have quite extensive line for these. I'm old-fashioned, I'm straight and needle tip. I like the double curved shears because these allow me to cherry pick not the foreground and uproot like Lantium, Glossostigma, Marsilia, you name it, and just clip them away as needed. And I reverse them, I use them to shape the contour of the aquatic plants. I like to follow the structures to define the negative space as old school as it can be. If you look behind you, you can see that with, well, the contour is lost a little bit on the edges, but
I did that.
but you can actually see how Ballard did the 3-to-2 division. First layer is going to be Lantium tenellum. In between, a little bit of hair grass, and towards the front, a little Marsilia. You don't have to cover everything. We're just going to walk around where we have some aqua soil. It's the ground cover. We're going to just stick to the structure, and we're going to still leave that open ground, so naturally it just gets covered with time. That November of 2001 changed my life. Seeing Mr. Romano work, I came back home and I started redoing all my tanks. It gave me a purpose to start competing because I never done it before then. IAPLC contest. I actively competed when you still have to take an actual photograph on 35 meals and send it by DHL to Japan. My best ranking, I think it was the 34th place. Now, we're going to talk about water chemistry. The one that most people follow is very simple. They have the tendency of keeping a very low reading of TDS, the total dissolved solids, kept under 200. Between 150 and 200 is the average.
You can name us, it's fine.
Oh, it's not just you. I wish it was just you. It's a lot of people. Alkalinity is really not much of an issue. I cannot emphasize enough, having that small buffering capacity can help you a great deal when it comes to healthy bacterial activity in your filtration. That alkalinity will actually give you a much beneficial bacterial activity in your filtration alone. And that's the reason why I advise for people when they have a planted aquarium to at least try to keep 1 milliequivalents in your alkalinity, or roughly 3 kH. But most importantly is the general hardness. 2 milliequivalences, or roughly 6 DGH, is what I like to use. And the reason why is because calcium and magnesium are very important for plants and fish. Why? Because osmotic regulation. So this provides enough quantities for the fish not to get any osmotic problems, and for the plants to thrive and not develop calcium or magnesium deficiencies along the line. 3 DKH and 6 DGH is what I advise. One of the first things that people do when it comes to algae, they stop dosing, which is a big no-no to me. You need to outcompete the needs of the algae by providing the plant with what's needed. And do water changes, remove algae manually, use algae eaters, and bring the tank to equilibrium. That's what you want.
You send us quite a list of different plants.
Yes.
Is that normal? You do this?
Normal within reason. But I can tell you that when you start a planted aquarium and you plant densely, you have a better chance of starting right.
Not referring to the amount of plants, like the pots of plants, but the diversity of your plants choice. It was surprising for me.
I guess you can define it as my style.
You try to enjoy the plants themselves a bit
I'll take
more.
that back. I actually am pretty good at covering my mistakes by growing beautiful plants. Mr. Takashi Manu was always emphasizing, okay, go out, look at nature, observe how it changes, look at the seasons, look at the textures, look at the colors, you know, and try to apply these to your aquascapes. I'm a runner, I do trail running, so running through the forest it's something that I do for mental health, but I also like to sometimes stop cold and look at a beautiful tree that has naturally fallen and is half consumed by termites, and you have epiphytic plants growing above it. At that particular time of the year, I love the seasons and see how the time frame takes that big tree into a smaller piece, into smaller chunks until you can run right through it. In Green Aqua, put together the epiphytic plants ready for me. We just used a small type. Well, that didn't last. And a rock. And that way we keep the epiphytic plants in place. Why? Because it's really easy to work with this. You can just set them and forget them.
Who was the most inspiring you've seen, and whose workshop was the biggest surprise?
For me, the understanding of competitive aquascaping and what today probably guides half of the people who's aquascaping professionally is the workshop that was done in this place by Mr. Josh Sim. That's probably one of the best tutorials.
This exact aquarium.
The most amazing workshop was to see Mr. Puchade's work. So he's amazingly good at bossing people around. He was all over the place. It was hard to keep up with him, and he worked fast, and he works beautiful, and he's very straightforward. And to see Luca, the world champion, the team work that the Brazilians have is the reason why they crown themselves, and you see them on the top 20s consistently nowadays. Repens.
Okay. None on the other side? Just in here and in here?
No.
Okay. You don't follow the whatever on the left has to go on the right side as well rule.
Inconsistency of nature and the imperfection that gives you that wild look, yet organized by God, I guess, nature, that give you that a little bit of wild side to it. So that's the reason why I've been doing that lately, and I quite enjoy it, to be honest with you. So we're going to do OJ on this side. We're going to do Atra behind the big whip, a little rotundifolia, a larger portion of Atra, and OJ back here.
Okay. Any mixing on the edge?
Yes, like merge them.
And all the rotellas go on that side, so you don't need to save any for this side?
No. No, on this side we're going to do the star-shaped ones. Well, we have to make some changes along the line, so...
It's okay, I just want to make sure if you need...
Limnophila eperoides and Rotalen and Jensen. So the shape is consistent and it's wider to narrower, and the same here is same leaf structure at least is going to be more consistent. Leave just a few gaps so I can put some vivipara. One thing that I will probably do on Monday, I want to create an ellipse that actually catches up a little bit more the structure so it doesn't look too linear, too flat, because it's quite boring. With proper trimming, you will see the plants merging together. I don't think aquascaping is a hobby that can be rushed. I think aquascaping is a hobby that teaches you patience. It actually gives you sense of art, golden ratios, the 2:1, the 3:2s, and you try to apply these in a canvas that is made out of glass. Over the years, I collected a very large amount of unsen. I've been sitting on it for well over a decade without doing anything with it. So I had the time to make some coffee and play some music, and I just start working with my Uns and Stone, and I came up with a 75P design packed up with Uns and Stone, and I just went crazy. And everything was fun and games until we got a hurricane notice this June, and we got hit by a Cat 1 hurricane, and the roof of my house got compromised. Water got in, saturated the insulation in between the second story ceiling, and my office, my daughter's room, and a game room, and the whole thing just collapsed and broke my aquarium to pieces. But we're back to normal, I guess, and I will get new tanks and start over again.
OCD kicking in?
A little bit.
Okay, I see that. So you're just fixing something that you already put in. Well, it's done, isn't it?
It's done, indeed. Well, I was honored and happy to come in Aquascape for Green Aqua, this 120 centimeter aquarium. I had a blast. Professional store, very professional team. Thank you for everything. I hope this was useful to you. I really appreciate you took the time of your busy schedules to come and see us. On behalf of seachem and Mr. Miller, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming here and joining us. Thank you all for watching us. I hope you've learned a lot of new stuff, and see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.